What's going on, Summoners? Hope y'all ready for another patch preview. I'm Kangas, and today I'm giving you a look at what's getting buffed and nerfed in patch 11.12. There aren't too many changes this time around, so hit that sub button and let's jump right into them. Starting off with the system nerfs, it seems like we won't be getting any major changes in patch 11.12. Recently, Riot has mentioned changing mobility in the game, and they even released multiple dev blogs talking about how complex the issue is. When you look at Season 11's items, stuff like Gale Force and Stridebreaker creates a new realm of possibility for immobile champions. Unfortunately, that also means mobile champions can get even more mobility now. No one likes facing Darius with Ghost and Flash top lane, but it's even harder once he picks up that Stridebreaker. So we should expect to see some mobility reduction in patch 11.13, but maybe we'll get some more info on that soon. Since there aren't any major system changes, let's go over what champions are getting nerfed next week. So far, the list is Wukong, Kai'Sa, Varus, Nasus, Gnar, and Renekton, which importantly means that only top laners and AD carries are getting nerfs. Starting out with the top lane, Wukong has been a really solid champion for a few patches now, and it shouldn't surprise anybody that he's getting a nerf. After the buffs to Divine Sunderer, Wukong's sustain and burst damage went up by a lot, so I'm expecting some nerfs to his Q or even the cooldown of his ult. But it doesn't stop there because Divine Sunderer made a lot of champions stronger, including Nasus. The big dog is sitting at a very comfortable 52% win rate in some elos, and his gameplay is a bit stale for the enemy laner. If you can just farm your Q and avoid an early death, Nasus can get an early back and then buy a Sheen. And once he hits level 6, he can beat almost any top laner in a 1v1. But moving on to our next top laner with nerfs, Gnar is up on the chopping block. He isn't totally dominating solo queue, so my guess is that Riot plans to nerf him for pro play specifically. Hopefully it won't affect his win rate too much, since he isn't always in the meta that often. But honestly, I don't think anyone likes facing Gnar, so maybe this is for the best. And the last top laner on our list is Renekton. This champion causes a lot of debate in pro play, and his effectiveness is directly related to how good the piloting player is. If you want to carry a game on Renekton, you really need to push your leads and close out games fast. I honestly don't know why Riot would nerf Renekton right now, especially since they're most likely nerfing Stridebreaker in patch 11.13, but we'll see what it looks like. Moving on to the bot lane, Kai'Sa is an AD carry that thrives on diving into the enemy team with the rest of her front line. She's one of the best Halo Blades users in the bot lane, and I'm a bit surprised that she's getting nerfed despite her main rune getting hit last patch. We'll need to see how big this nerf is to decide where she'll be in the meta. Varus is also getting nerfed, and I feel like Riot is constantly trying to decide whether or not they like the lethality build. Kinda like Kai'Sa, I'm interested to see how Riot decides to nerf Varus if his primary rune got nerfed on 11.11. My guess is that they're taking away some of the damage from the Empowered W, since the damage scales insanely well into the late game. So now that we covered all the nerfs, let's move on to the champions that are getting buffed. So far we got Rammus, Hecarim, Aphelios, Draven, Alawi, Malphite, and Ziggs. Unlike the nerfs, the only role not getting a champion buffed is unfortunately support. So let's go over the top laners first. Alawi is a champion that I have not seen or even thought about in forever, so I'm excited to see what Riot has planned for her. She's a pretty frustrating champion to play against as a melee champ, so I'm just hoping that we don't get a buff to her E. Something important to note is that Alawi hates mobile champions, so if she gets a huge buff, she might end up being a powerful pick in patch 11.13, assuming that mobility gets hit that patch. So the next top laner we get buffed is Malphite. After so many tank nerfs, we're finally seeing the cycle of balance come full circle. The Bramble Vest nerfs hurt every single tank in the game, but it hurt champions that rely on armor like Malphite even more. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we just see straight up more armor given to the champ. Speaking of champions that rely on armor, Rammus is one of the junglers getting buffed in patch 11.12. Even after his rework, Rammus is suffering once again in his role, and this time the meta also isn't in his favor. I'm guessing Riot will give him some more armor and maybe even extra damage for his clear. And the last jungler we're talking about is Hecarim. He's been in a really tough spot since his heavy nerfs, and I think it's time that Riot showed him a little love. As long as it isn't to tank Hecarim, I'll be happy. Moving on to the mid lane, Ziggs is the only champion listed for buffs. Unlike other artillery mages, Ziggs relies on sieging turrets instead of catching champions. In an explosive meta, it's really hard to play him, especially against popular picks like Zed and Yasuo. So I'm interested in what changes he's got. Finally, let's go over our bot lane buffs. Both Aphelios and Draven are getting touched up, and I'm hoping that these changes will bring even more diversity to a pretty stale bot lane right now. Even with the buffs to his ultimate a few patches ago, Aphelios just isn't good into the high damage and high mobility champions that are dominating the meta. If Riot wants to make him viable, they'll need to give him more survivability, so let's see if they decide to buff his sustain. Draven's also getting buffed, which is kind of a bit surprising. He's not in a terrible place, and his solo queue win rate is higher than both Kai'Sa and Varus, who are both up for nerfs. I have a feeling that if Draven gets overbuffed, he'll actually just start destroying other AD carries. Maybe this is just a ploy to get Tyler 1 to start playing AD carry again, I don't know. So now that we've gone over the balance changes, don't forget that the new Dr. Mundo should be making his appearance on patch 11.12, so if you want to learn more about the rework, check out our full ability rundown. Well, this patch looks like it's a pretty small one, but it's probably just the calm before patch 11.3. I'm also still holding off on those Gwen nerfs. If you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like it and sub to the channel so you never miss any of our League of Legends news or content. Thanks so much for watching, best of luck on the Rift everybody, stay hydrated, and I'll see you next time.